What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Taking Command with Josh Taylor, going live here to talk about the victory last night, 32-21 at the Link. That's right. We went in the trap and took over the trap. Big time upsets. Let's do it, guys. Let's take command. What a thrilling victory that was last night. I tweeted out, if you follow me on Twitter, at Josh Taylor FB, you can see it at the bottom of the screen there. I really wanted to pick Washington, but I just didn't have it in me. I'm a betting guy. Some of y'all know that. Something in me said to bet on Washington, but I said I couldn't do it just because of that first game that we saw. I was there at FedEx Field when we played the Eagles. I know it's Carson Wentz. The offensive line was a little bit different. But still, I couldn't do it. I didn't have it in me to bet on Washington in that game just because I didn't think our offensive line was going to be good enough. I didn't think Heinicke was going to be good enough. And our offense has just been really stale the last few weeks. But nonetheless, a lot to talk about with this one. Obviously, still just riding this high of, giving the Eagles their first loss of the season. I didn't expect it. Not many people did, especially on a Monday night, which we play terrible usually. At Philadelphia, we don't play well there. And then just as dominant as they've been, they kind of had like a little bit of a slump against the Texans the week before, but they had a long week to prepare. I expected a totally different Eagles team, but nonetheless, I was surprised big time by how we performed. What's going on? Ready? Thought Taylor couldn't read or go through his progressions. Well, to be honest with you, I think he did pretty good with that last night. And a lot of y'all know I'm critical on Heinicke. I'm critical on all of our quarterbacks, honestly, just because I'm dying for a legit big-time quarterback. But I think Taylor actually did a good job last night going through his progressions, especially finding Terry. That's the theme that we've seen the last few weeks, and especially since like the Colts game when he took over. For some reason, Carson Wentz just could not get Terry McLaurin the ball. And that bugged the heck out of me and a lot of fans. Especially if you're at the stadium. Every time Terry catches a ball, you hear a chant for Terry. But it seemed like last night, and I'm going to watch the all 22 either tonight or tomorrow morning, which is what I usually do because you can see things a lot better. But just going off of it, honestly, I thought Taylor did a good job of going through his reads and not forcing too much. Of course, there's that one throw that killed me. When we have the lead and he throws it, Terry McLaurin's open. I want to say Slay was on him again. He has Slay beat. He has to throw it to his outside shoulder, but instead he throws it to the inside shoulder, and the safety comes over and picks it off. And you could hear Troy Aikman talking about it too. Like, you've got to do something with your eyes, something that a lot of quarterbacks do. Actually, Wentz did it early in the season. I did a video breaking down the all 22. I forgot who it was. I want to say it was the Jaguars. It was the third to Terry. He looks over, pulls the safety off, and hits Terry deep. Stuff like that, Taylor really has to learn at this age and, part of his career. I think that's something he should have learned by now. But still, I'm going to give him credit in saying that he did a good job of going through his progressions, finding the open guy, and didn't force too much except that one throw, which could have absolutely been a backbreaker. It was last week against the Vikings. Once again, I was there. I saw it. Overthrows the tallest guy on the whole team with Logan Thomas, and Harrison Smith picks it off. So I saw that once again last night, and I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. He's going to do it again. But luckily, the defense stepped up. And I'm 100% agreeing with you. I tweeted out, there's no way the Eagles are going to win when Joey Slye goes, 4 for 4 and yacked a 58-yarder. I never would have expected that out of Joey Slye. I said, Joey Slye, let it fly. That's my new saying for him. He's a little muscle shark. He's a short guy. He's a smaller guy, but he is bulked up. But phenomenal game by him. Easily his best game, in the pros, especially with us. But I've got to give some props to a couple people. It's a lot of people, to be honest with you. First off, on offense, as critical as we are to Scott Turner with what he does, it seems like on a weekly basis, I just want to say something about Scott Turner. I'm not against how he calls certain games, to be honest with you, because you have to think about what Scott Turner is having to work with. You want Carson Wentz to be your quarterback, and we saw big time plays with Carson Wentz at quarterback. And I think Scott Turner, calls great plays. Sometimes he calls some boneheaded ones, but for a majority, you have to think about what he has to work with and, what he wants to do, but then also what his quarterback's allowing him to do. I think Carson Wentz did that at times, but at other times it was just too much for him, maybe too complicated. He was in his own head. It just seemed like Carson Wentz was stuck in his own head. And then for Taylor, it's a completely different quarterback. We know he can't push the envelope, but we know that he's more relentless. He's better in the pocket than Carson Wentz. I think Carson Wentz is great on his feet. He's good at getting out of the pocket somehow for his size. I think Heinicke does that same thing. I think they're just completely different quarterbacks. So you have to imagine you have this certain playbook for Scott Turner for one quarterback, and then he gets hurt and he's out for a while. And then you have Heinicke for a while. And I get it. You had Heinicke last year, so you should know what you want to do on offense. But still, it's tough. As complicated as people say his offense is, going from one style quarterback to another. But yesterday, it was the formula to beat the Eagles. And I think a lot of teams are going to see this. With Heinicke, he didn't do too much. He didn't call anything too crazy. He just really took what the defense gave him. And then, of course, once again, fighting Terry McLaurin, who was open at will against Darius Slay. He cooked Slay. Next Gen Stats put some stuff up today talking about how ridiculous Terry was last night, as per usual. So the formula is find Terry McLaurin for Washington. But against the Eagles, the time of possession was incredible. I think Washington really took the way that the Eagles have won games this season: time of possession, running game, and then just turnovers. The Eagles only had, 3 turnovers the entire season before yesterday. But they caused a ton of turnovers, especially with Gardner Johnson. So for me, it was running the ball, time of possession, and then turnovers were huge. Absolutely. Slye came up big. He's missed some, boneheaded ones, but at the end of the day, when he's yakking 58 yarders, he should have definitely got a game ball. 4 for 4, kept us in the game. I want to say when Heinicke threw his interception, the defense got 2 back-to-back turnovers, and he kicked that field goal in the middle of them to, keep things going. So when you have a kicker like that, especially right now, the league is hurting at kicker. You see guys missing PATs left and right this year, which is ridiculous. But time of possession, man, 40 minutes and 24 seconds compared to 1936. The Eagles didn't even have it for 20 minutes. And it was because Scott Turner said, we are going to run the ball. I don't care who our quarterback is. I don't care what our offensive line looks like. I don't care about what limitations. I don't care about the Eagles, defensive line, who's been stellar this year. Obviously, they're big time missing Jordan Davis, that giant mountain of a man up front. He's been hurt. Even though he's a rookie coming out of Georgia, people knew this guy was legit. But Scott Turner said, we are going to run the ball. I do not care. And I don't blame him, honestly. It worked. Just looking at Brian Robinson, 26 carries for 86 yards and a touchdown. Those were hard-fought carries. And then, of course, Gibson, 14 carries for 44 yards and a touchdown as well. So you run the ball 49 times, which I didn't look, but that's got to be the most we've done all season. That's that 49 times in the game is ridiculous. That's how you get that time of possession, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. My favorite one was Brian Robinson at the goal line, pushing through, looks out of the corner of his eye, sees where the end zone is and sticks it out. Heinicke goes crazy, does his little celebration. But these hard-fought carries, that's what you want. And Brian Robinson said, he was talking to someone before the game when they interviewed him, and she mentioned, he says he's not at 100% yet. He's still trying to get back. And trust me, as an Alabama fan, I watched every single game of Brian Robinson's career. He was there for 5 years, didn't play much until that last year. Obviously, he waited his turn. So he has that experience, and he has, but he still has all those treads on the tire. He's not like a used, worn down running back like we did with Derrick Henry, where he was running it 36, 40 times a game, which was ridiculous by himself. But for B-Rob, he has that experience. I think he is going to be a great running back. I still don't – and I can tell he's not 100% yet. I know the Brian Robinson, how he runs, but he's slowly getting back there. Every week it seems like he's getting better. It's going to come with his cuts. It's going to come – you're going to see him break more tackles. He just has such strong legs. And he's always, low center of gravity, keeps the ball tight, didn't fumble at all last year at Alabama. So just a big-time guy. And it's a good compliment with AG, who we've seen – come out in the receiving role, I think Gibson's finding more of his and settling in the offense more right now, whether it's running the ball, whether it is, catching the ball. And same with Curtis Samuel. He ran it 4 times for 12 yards yesterday. But we've seen throughout the season, Curtis Samuel running the ball in the Vikings game. He had a couple big runs. I'm like, hey, like mix it up, put him in there. That's fine. They can, put him in motion where he's going on like wheel routes or just some delayed routes. But nonetheless, I really like what Scott Turner did in the run game yesterday. And he stuck with it. It didn't matter, but just grinding out those yards to where it's not 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 8, even something where it's like 3rd and long. It really helps the offense convert. And like I said, Taylor Heinicke didn't have the craziest day yesterday. If you look on paper stats wise, he got sacked 3 times. Obviously, that strip sack in the beginning was awful because Charles Leno let Sweat go by easily. But all in all, I think Heinicke did enough to get the ball to Terry, find the open guys, and minus that one turnover that's killing me. I think he did a good job. Once again, if you follow me on Twitter, the Heinicke Hive knows me. You know I'm very critical, and I'm critical of Carson Wentz too. I'm critical of any quarterback that's here. It was with Alex Smith, RG3, Fitzpatrick for that drive. I mean, it doesn't matter. Haskins, same thing. I'm critical on the quarterbacks because I'm dying for a legit quarterback one still. But I think, side note, I think we're going to roll with Heinicke next week versus the Texans, especially what Ron said today. He said something along the lines of like, obviously I'm going to do like what's best for the team, whoever helps us win the most, it needs to mention like how the team's like bought into like whoever. Obviously it's going to be Taylor Heinicke. I don't think you can pull Taylor Heinicke. Was he 3-1 now? Only loss was against the Vikings, which was definitely a winnable game. So the team just seems to play better around him, and it's not a bad thing at all. You have to ride the hot hand. So I think Heinicke will play against the Texans. And if you saw my video earlier this morning, put out that Chase Young is set to come back and play against the Texans, which obviously was that last game before that 21-day window where you have to shut that down for the rest of the season. So I'm expecting Chase Young back. If you want my thoughts on Chase Young, go watch that video. I agree with you. I don't see how you pull Heinicke right now. You got to ride the hot hand. Honestly, it's just like a running back. Whoever's got the hot hand and he's picking up the yards, you don't pull them and put somebody else in. Or I always hated like the 2 quarterback system teams where they're like, mixing all this guy's a running quarterback, all this guy's a passing quarterback. Like, no, just stick with one. Let someone get hot, feel out, get in a rhythm, and get the offense going. I hated 2 quarterback systems, but same thing. You can't pull Heinicke out. You have to ride it. My question that I mentioned on Twitter today is, what is his leash like to where if he throws a bad interception, do you pull him and put Carson Wentz in? So I think that's something to watch for, how much he, of a leash he has, which I think he should have a pretty good leash because he's throwing interceptions and turnovers every single game, but he still finds a way to make big plays, get the ball to Terry, and so on. Let's talk about, obviously, Terry, 8 catches, 128 yards on 11 targets. And the second most targets was Curtis Samuel with 4 and Logan Thomas with 4. So it just tells you Heinicke loves going to Terry, and it works. I don't know why Carson Wentz would not go to Terry, except for, the Jaguars game and a couple other times. He's had big plays against him, so you would think he would, or with him, so you'd think he'd go to him more, but he didn't for whatever reason. Offensive line, all in all, I think they did pretty good. For what we have to work with, Tyler Larson in, Trey Turner in, Sima Cosme played a little bit. He actually did pretty good. I'm ready for him to get back to 100% because I think he does better in the run protection, run blocking schemes, picking up those guys, getting those lanes open. I think that's what Cosme does best. I don't know if he's going to stay at right tackle or move into right guard, but we definitely need to draft a guy, whether it's in the first, second round. Doesn't matter. Got to get the offensive line going. Doesn't matter who's at quarterback. Offensive line has to be better. But if you look at the run game, you can't be mad at how they performed. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's no surprise that Terry McLaurin produces yards and big plays. And he's one of the best contested catching wide receivers in the NFL the last 3 or 4 years. I think he's number 1 actually. But he's always catching the most improbable completions, especially the one against the Colts. But feed Terry McLaurin. But I have to shout out this defense because myself included and a lot of other people was like, fire Jack Del Rio. Something's wrong with this defense. These guys are too good to be playing this bad. But honestly, it seems like once William Jackson III came off the field, all these big explosive plays stopped happening. Kendall Fuller, low key, had one of his best games last night. AJ Brown only had one catch. And then Ben St-Juste, I'm not mad at all at how he's been playing his coverage. It might be aggressive. It might get flagged every now and then, but I would much rather that than him play super soft on a guy and he's getting beat like William Jackson did all the time. For me, that CeeDee Lamb touchdown on William Jackson III was the final straw. I actually was at the Senior Bowl when Ben St-Juste was there. He's coming out of Minnesota. Got a couple sick pics of him, by the way. But I saw him. I'm like, yo, this guy is so long and lengthy, but he's so fast. I love, how his hips move. Like, he's not a tight kind of guy at all. Like, I loved Ben St-Juste coming out of the Senior Bowl. And I remember I was sitting there in Mobile at a bar, actually, just watching the third round. And I remember when we drafted him, people like, who the heck is this guy? And I was like, man, look, I think he's going to turn out to be a good one. So I'm not mad at all how he's playing. Keep being physical. That interference on Devontae Smith, and I'm an Alabama guy. Like, born and raised Alabama. Devontae Smith is one of my favorites all time. Love Smitty, the Slim Reaper, the Heisman winning wide receiver. So it seems like whenever he's getting powered by a big guy like that, he's going to draw, penalties. It's like Steph Curry going in the paint. Like, he's going to get fouled. So I'm not mad at all at St-Juste. He didn't pull him. He didn't tug him. He had a hand on him, looked back, played the ball, stuck his hand up after looking over his shoulder. He did everything right. There's no way that should have been a flag. But obviously the refs were spotty yesterday. The Eagles are going to call out the face mask, call that should have been called on Jamin Davis. Regardless, that was a fumble. Yeah, the face mask did not cause the fumble at all. That ball was coming out. But St-Juste, give him his roses. He's been balling out. I saw the glimpse of what he could be against the Eagles the first time when he was on Devontae Smith. And he was, once again, I did a all 22 video on that one, just doing a film breakdown. Impressed the heck out of me. He was one of my highlights on that video as well. Kind of proves your point. They are too good to play that bad. Killer safety play from Curl and Defoe. Derek Forrest coming out of nowhere. Like, Bobby McCain's got to be gone this season, because Derek Forrest does something that we didn't think he could do, and that's playing single high safety without having to, worry about getting blown over the top. And that showed in that interception against AJ Brown. I want to say, once again, I'll have to watch all 22, but I want to say he was the only single high safety on that play. Ball comes over the top. I think that was St-Juste that was with him. I can't remember. But it hits AJ Brown, but he fights with it, grabs the ball at the last second as he's falling down. But it just showed his ability to cover the field sideline to sideline. As a single high safety, you have to be able to do that. And that's something we've been lacking big time. Obviously, Landon Collins was not that guy. Bobby McCain's supposed to be that guy, but Bobby McCain is also like 5'9", literally, and just doesn't have the reach. That first matchup, he got burnt by Devontae Smith. Burnt by Devontae when he was the single high guy, just all game long. So Derek Forrest coming in and filling that role. Cam Curl getting hurt at the beginning of the season might have been the biggest blessing that we didn't expect, because now Cam Curl's back. He looks phenomenal. One of the highest rated safeties in the entire league right now, if not, top 2, top 3. And then Derek Forrest being that guy that complements him really well. And you can still move Cam Curl up top, close up as like that money backer guy, which they've done a couple times, especially, when Cole Holcomb and them were banged up. David Mayo was banged up. They had to move Cam Curl to play that role a couple times. So we still have all the things you can do with those two safeties. So for me, I'm looking for another safety to kind of take over by McCain's spot. And just take those reps, whether it's in the draft, whether it's free agency, this offseason, whatever. But you have to be impressed with Derek Forrest. I remember one of his first camps coming in, he was getting interceptions like every day. And I was like, yo, we need to see this guy play. So good to finally see it. Definitely needs it. But these young guys, like, we have to give them some props. Jamin Davis has gotten so much better. I told y'all that's my guy. I love Jamin. Met him a couple times. Ran him at the airport this offseason in Austin, Texas. Talked to him for a while. I mean, he was hyped up. He looked good. He was actually with Landon Collins. But I told him, I was like, man, like this leap this next year. And you have to remember with Jamin Davis, how fresh he was at Kentucky, the kind of role he did at Kentucky wasn't really this pro style NFL defense. When he was there, he's more like getting after the quarterback. I mean, he was fast. He was still doing the coverage stuff. But we've seen Jamin Davis grow so much this year. I love it. That's exactly what we need out of it. So for all those that were hating on my guy, Jamin, just sit back, be patient, just like all these other young guys, whether if we get another quarterback or not, just be patient. It takes some time. This is the NFL. This is the best of the best. You can't just be thrown in there and be like, oh, he's Fred Warner or whoever at linebacker. Like, no, it just takes some time. John Ridgeway, another dude I really liked. I said on Twitter last night, he was a wrecking machine at Arkansas. He was one of those dudes up front. I hated playing against him, like with Alabama, seeing those guys couldn't run the ball against him. I mean, he always made some big time plays. And there was a reason that the Cowboys were pissed that we took him. Like they were getting ready to elevate him to the active roster, and then we took him out and claimed him. And they weren't happy about it. The Eagles wanted him too. They put in a claim for him. But Ridgeway's come up big, filling in, especially with, Phil Mathis out, has that depth guy. He's played a good bit. Ridgeway's played a decent amount of snaps, especially in that run game, just stopping anything from coming down the middle. And then, of course, getting that fumble yesterday was huge. So he's been big for us. These young guys just thriving in this defense is exactly what we need. Not even, just talking about, John Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, who had a big sack last night. And then Chase Young coming back. Like seeing these young guys is the core of the defense. That is huge for this team. Absolutely huge for this team. So that's why I'm excited to see when Chase Young comes back, what the defense looks like. But you have to know what the future looks like for the defense. And I think it looks bright. I think the main thing that was holding it back was really William Jackson III. And I think guys are playing where they're supposed to be. Wild Goose has been out too. Danny Johnson was in the slot. People haven't even been talking about that. Wild Goose is out. I want to say last week too, but he was out last night. Danny Johnson was in the slot. I was impressed. Jalen Hurts was only 17 for 26, 2 touchdowns and that 1 interception. Did get sacked that one time. But when you look at, I said the recipe for the Eagles all season long is what we did last night. We ran the ball at will. We stuck with it. We controlled the game. We kept them off the field. But then when they were on the field, we got big time turnovers. So the Eagles ran it 20 times last night, which has to be a season low for them, for only 94 yards and a touchdown, which is not bad at all for how they run, not even just with Jalen Hurts, but Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell. Miles Sanders has been on a tear. He was top 5 in rushing yards, and then after last night, he fell out of that top 5. So you got to be impressed. It was honestly a complete performance by the team. Like, I'll give Heinicke his props. He made some good throws, minus that 1 interception. I give props to the running game. I give props to Scott Turner for sticking with it. But then the defense, these young guys getting these big time turnovers. Like, I am so excited to see what St. Juice turns into, because he has all the tools you need, and he has the physical attributes that you can't just create. Like, he's just born that way. He's just that tall. He's that lengthy. He's that physical. That's why people were super high on him coming out of the Senior Bowl. Like, he was talked about a lot. He made a lot of big time plays. So outside of that, like I'm interested, flood the comments once I post this up. Tell me what y'all think about the game. Obviously the Texans game. Like I said, I think Heinicke's the one that goes with it. I don't see a way that you can pull him. You've got to go with the hot hand, stick with it. Ron says they haven't decided yet, but I think deep down inside in the back of his head, he knows. He sees how the team reacts to Taylor Heinicke. No offense, but I didn't see that ever with Carson Wentz. And I don't think it's a Carson Wentz thing. I think it's just a Taylor Heinicke thing. I think it's just his personality. Like, you're attracted to the guy, how he performs, how he plays, how he just gives his all. And then obviously the big time play where he's kneeling and then he gets hit by Brandon Graham at the end of the game. Eagles fans are so mad about that. But if that was Jalen Hurts and Sweat comes off the edge and just drills him and headbutts him, after he takes a knee and already gets touched by another guy, they would be fuming. And like I said, the refs were awful last night on both sides. with the St. Juice calls, with the missed face mask. I get it. There was bad calls. It evens out. You could tell there was a couple calls where the ref's like, oh, we got to make up for that one, and just threw it out there. But, I mean, third down, 12 for 21. We had 21 third downs. That is unheard of. Compared to the Eagles, only were 5 and 8 on third down. So complete control. And the icing on the cake was Smitty throwing back that lateral at the end of the game and Casey Toohill picking it up in the end zone and then hitting the gritty at the link. If Casey Toohill is hitting the gritty at the link, that's a wrap. Like, your season is cursed after that. The Eagles are going to lose first round of the playoffs because they're going to fumble right there where Casey Toohill hit the gritty at the link. But once again, super impressed with how they played. I didn't see it happening, just being honest. I don't think many people did, unless you're super optimistic and haven't watched a game this year. Because it just seems like these are the ones where we get close, then something happens bad at the end. It almost happened, but the defense came back and just balled out for us. It's crazy to even say that this team still can make the playoffs with everything that's going on. I don't think that 4 NFC East teams can make the playoffs. Like, it's just so hard, record wise, because like we've got to sweep the Giants, we've got to beat the Cowboys one more time, or we got to beat the Falcons because they're an NFC team and they're right there on the brink. That Falcons game is bigger than people realize. That Falcons game can decide if we make the playoffs or not, or if they get ahead of us, because they'll have the head-to-head advantage, and possibly the better record. The Falcons are right there, sadly, because they suck. They are awful. My buddy at work from Atlanta, big-time Falcon fan, he even says they suck. They have no business going to the playoffs. But the NFC is just that bad. Same with 49ers. They're good. They're getting better. Seahawks going to win that division somehow. And the 49ers are probably going to be in the playoffs as a wild card spot. So you have to remember that. We, like I said, have the Giants twice, have the Falcons, have the Cowboys. I think that's all the NFC teams I can remember. You got Browns and somebody else. So you've got to win those. But somehow this team is still alive for the playoffs. I don't get it, but I'm not going to be mad at it. I'm super excited that, we won last night. People think just because I'm, critical of Heinicke that I'm mad that, we won. But I think that's weird. Just because I'm critical of our quarterback doesn't mean I hate the guy. I'm not a Heinicke hater. For those that follow me on Twitter, know exactly what I'm talking about. I just want a good quarterback because I said it like 2 weeks ago. This team is a really good quarterback away from just being so dangerous. And I see it every single week with the defense balling out the way it is, with our running game finally getting going. And then our wide receivers are just nasty. And my boy Jahan Dotson was finally back, had one good catch. That's all he needed. He's coming back in slowly but surely. That was a damn good run after the catch after he caught that one. So crazy game. I'm excited to hear what y'all got to say about it. So drop it in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Got a lot of good things cooking up. This has already been a crazy season. We're 5-5. Somehow, possibly going to be in the playoffs. So subscribe to the channel. Appreciate y'all coming in, chopping it up, talking, flooding the comments and stuff like that. Love hearing what y'all got to say. Going to be doing some more of these, hopefully every like Monday night, Tuesday night, maybe. Depends on my work schedule and Penn State stuff. But subscribe because I always got some good things cooking up. Got some interesting videos that y'all going to want to see coming up as well with what next year could look like with a couple different hot topics. So stay tuned on Taking Command with Josh Taylor, and I will see y'all later on this week. Of course, going to do a breakdown of the Texans game, give my thoughts, what we can see, who's going to be playing at quarterback, and so on. So I'll see y'all on Taking Command with Josh Taylor. Hit that subscribe button because you won't forget it.